My identical twin showed up at my door covered in bruises. He whispered, "Her brothers have been beating me for a year." 7 weeks later, I watched them get cuffed in front of everyone. I was Nathan, 32, a civil engineer in Seattle. My twin had married Kristen, had a 4-year-old daughter, and somehow ended up terrified in his own house. Most people couldn't tell us apart. That Tuesday in March, he stepped into my condo like a ghost. Split lip, purple cheek, one hand guarding his ribs. Finally, he rasped, "Blake and Craig, Kristen's brothers." He said it started as jokes, a shove at dinner, mocking his job, calling him soft. Then they began letting themselves in with a key Kristen gave them, eating his food, acting like he didn't get a vote in his own life. The first real beating happened in the garage. Craig held him. Blake hit him like he was teaching a lesson. Afterward, they promised, "Tell anyone, and we'll take your kid. We'll make you look crazy. No one will believe you." Kristen saw bruises and accepted every excuse. When my brother tried to set boundaries, she looked away. Her parents worshipped their sons. The threat that froze him hardest wasn't his own pain. It was them casually mentioning accidents that could happen to his daughter. He asked me to switch places so he could disappear and heal. I should have said no. I didn't. I rented a cabin a few hours north, drove him there, and told him, "Sleep, breathe, I'll handle them." Before I left, he gripped my wrist and whispered, "Please, keep Sophie safe." I moved into his house and became him. Same routines, same quiet posture, same bedtime stories for Sophie. She'd climb into my lap like everything was normal, and it made my stomach turn. I planted cameras that looked like normal stuff and carried a pen recorder. Every time Blake or Craig used their key, every insult, every shove, every threat got time-stamped and backed up. I left nothing unrecorded. Blake came like clockwork and treated me like furniture. "Real men build things," he'd sneer, shoulder-checking me into the counter. When Kristen's car hit the driveway, he flipped to charming big brother and said loudly, "Just checking in on my sister." Craig was worse because he was calm. He'd smile and say, "Judges love moms. One little story and you're done." Then he'd glance toward Sophie's room like it was a reminder. By week 4, they stopped pretending it was roughhousing. In the garage, Craig pinned my arms while Blake drove punches into my ribs. That night, Kristen saw the fresh bruises and only sighed. "You need to be more careful," she said, like I'd slipped in the shower. By week 6, I had enough footage to bury them. Frank and Patricia were hosting their anniversary dinner. 40 people packed in. I asked to hook up a laptop for family photos. They said yes. After dessert, I stood up. Kristen shot me a warning. Look, Blake smirked, like I was about to embarrass myself. I picked up the remote and hit play. Then the TV lit up with Blake letting himself into our home. Next came his shove, his grin, his fist in the garage. Again and again, the clips jumped. Kitchen, hallway, garage. After that, Craig's voice filled the room, threatening Sophie. Then Blake lunged up yelling and Frank barked, "Sit down." Next, the front door opened and 2 officers walked in. Blake shouted about context. I kept my voice flat. "Explain the context where you beat your sister's husband," I said, "and threaten a 4-year-old. Craig went pale. Blake tried to posture. The officers read charges, snapped cuffs on both, and marched them out in front of everyone. On the way out, Blake hissed, "We'll destroy you in court." I stared back. "You already tried. It didn't work." He went quiet after that. When the house emptied, Kristen finally turned on me. "How could you do this to my family?" she sobbed. I said, "Your family did this. You just watched." She tried the protective excuse again, so I ended it. "I'm not your husband," I told her. "I'm his twin. Every hit you ignored, I took. Every threat you shrugged off, I recorded. He's safe. You're not getting to pretend anymore." The evidence was brutal. Both brothers took plea deals, did jail time, and got strict no-contact orders. My brother divorced Kristen and got sole custody, with supervised visits for her. When I called him from the cabin with the news, he didn't even speak at first. He just cried. I went back to my condo with bruises that faded and anger that didn't, but my brother got his life back. And Blake and Craig finally learned what happens when you pick the wrong twin.